the forum. Oh, there's like, you may have a seat, sir. If you would all take a seat, please. Oh gosh, my school teachers is coming out in me. I don't want to have to walk over and stand by you to ask you to sit down. Yeah. All right. Welcome all tonight. Excuse me. It's really distracting when people are talking because I'm going to give you instructions so you'll know what's going on here. Okay, is this it? Got it? Can you hear me? Oh, we'll fix it. Hello, there we are. My name is Linda Locke, president of the Berryessa Citizens Advisory Council. Where am I? I forgot, I almost forgot. We are co-sponsoring tonight the forum for the mayoral candidates. They're down to 2 for the election in November. And we are co-sponsoring with the Penitentiary Neighborhood Association, the North Valley Democratic Club, and the Not on Noble group. So I'm going to explain how we got questions. There will be no questions from the audience. All the questions have been submitted by all of these groups that are helping us do this forum. We will be on Zoom, so the people that were not able to come tonight can be watching us. So be on your best behavior. And I'll explain something. The questions were generated by all the members of these groups, and they were sent to Susan. And then they went to a committee to kind of fetter them out so that we're not having 10 questions on homelessness and 3 questions on no garbage pickup days and all of that kind of stuff. So we tried to make a good variety of questions, and there's quite a few. And Roxanne will be the moderator for this. Our superintendent of Berryessa School District, Dr. Fuentes, will be moderating. She will ask the questions. Each candidate will be expected to answer the question. It is not a debate. It's what I feel, what I thought, how I think it should be. And then the other candidate says how they think it should be. And that's it. So they each get a chance to answer all of the questions. Let's see. There'll be no clapping after each statement. So at the end, you can clap and say, yes, this was a wonderful forum, but don't do it in between because that really eats up the time. And then that's the fewer questions that we'll have. So there's no filming. So don't get your cameras out or your iPhones. The filming is all being done by our media person, and it will be on our website. So you can look at it there. You can do whatever you want. You can show it to other people. But, and I prefer that there not be a lot of walking around in the back. The last forum we had somebody walking around quite a bit, and it really distracted me, and I was moderating the questions. And so I kept wondering what he was going to do. So please don't do that. So there's no filming, no cameras, but you'll have access to what goes on tonight on our website. Okay. And let me see, what else do I need to tell you? Okay, so it's not a debate. There's no clapping. There's no filming, but we're here to learn. We're here to hear. They've already said their piece like about 25 times. So we're waiting to see if there's something new. Or more than that. Oh my gosh. So, and I booked this at like, I don't know, 2 months ago, or at least. And they said, well, I can fit you in the middle of October. And I said, we'll take it, because we we have a great community here, and we all thought we needed to have our own forum here. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Fuentes, and you can carry on. She will tell you about the time limits and all of that stuff.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that everyone can hear me clearly. Let's just do a test. Looks good. Thank you. I'm Dr. Roxanne Fuentes, the proud superintendent of the Berryessa Union School District, and I welcome all of you to our Mayor Candidate Forum. As was mentioned by our president, Linda Locke, this is also a hybrid this evening, so we are also Zooming the event for our greater community at large. So welcome to our two candidates. We appreciate you spending your evening with us today. Just to share with you the format that we have several questions that have been submitted by all of our neighborhood associations here in the community of Berryessa. And we'll be asking you questions directly from what has been submitted. So there will be no questions that'll be given from the floor. Also, you'll have a 2-minute opportunity to do an introduction, as well as a two-minute opportunity to provide a closing at the end. And for each question, you'll have approximately 1.5 minutes. Our treasurer, Susan, up here up front, she does have time cards. So if you can keep focus on Susan, she'll let you know the countdown for your 2-minute time frame, as well as for your 1.5 minutes, okay? So again, welcome, and we're happy to have you here with us. So let's go ahead and begin our forum this evening with a warm welcome to you from us, as well as an introduction of just yourself to our community. And we'll begin with Cindy Chavez.
Thank you. And do you need us to stay seated because of the Zoom? Oh, thank you. To stay seated because of the Zoom. Okay, just don't run around. Don't run around with the mic. Okay. I just didn't know if you would, would you prefer that we stand? Nobody care. Okay. I'm the only one who cares about that tonight. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy Chavez. I am a member of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors. I've been on the Board of Supervisors since 2013. I previously served as a member of the San Jose City Council and served a term or a year or two, goodness, how much we forget, as vice mayor of the city. I served as a leader in the labor movement as the executive officer of the South Bay Labor Council, and I ran a think tank called Working Partnerships USA. I'm really excited to be with all of you this evening. And one of the reasons that I'm so excited about it is that I'm very interested in making sure that San Jose is safe, clean, that we're addressing homelessness, and we're adding more affordable housing. And I'm sure you're going to ask us about that. So I won't spend a bunch of time on that area, except to say this. I have very much enjoyed being a member of the San Jose community. I moved here 40 years ago. My husband and I raised our son, Brennan, here. We live in downtown San Jose, just east of San Jose State. In my time here, I have not only grown to fall in love with San Jose, but recognized that the talent and the leadership of this community is pretty profound. Ultimately, the reason I decided to run for mayor is that during COVID-19, I had the opportunity to work with the business community, the labor community, our neighborhoods, government, and saw that when we decide to work together, we do great things. We were able to vaccinate a lot of people. We were able to make San Jose the most vaccinated city and Santa Clara County the most vaccinated county. And we did that working together. What I'm confident about is based on all of that good work that we can do even more for the city of San Jose. One of the ways that we did that is I brought all the mayors of all the cities together and all the city managers every Saturday for 1.5 years so that we could keep people safe. I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight. I'm really pleased to have been invited. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here with you. My name's Matt Mahan. I am on the City Council representing District 10. Almaden and Santa Teresa have just been on the council just under 2 years. Prior to that was in the tech sector where I built a couple of software companies. And before that was actually a public school teacher just down the road in Alum Rock. I love San Jose. The city gave me opportunities that I didn't even know existed growing up. I grew up down in Watsonville in a little farming town. Was very lucky to earn a work-study scholarship here at a Catholic prep school called Bellarmine. I took public buses 4 hours a day over Highway 17 to come here for the same reason I think every family's come to San Jose, which is for greater opportunity, for greater upward mobility. And I certainly found that here. I came back after college and was a public school teacher, as I mentioned, had an opportunity to build companies in the tech sector. My wife, Sylvia, and I are raising our 2 little kids, Nina and Luke here. My wife's actually the president of Cristo Rey, the Jesuit high school at Five Wounds Church. We're both passionate about education, though it's not quite under the purview of the city. We really believe in investing in all of our children and creating more opportunity for everyone. The reason I'm running is that I'm worried about the trajectory our city is on. We have extremely high taxes. We've passed a lot of bonds. We were spending more than ever before, and yet the outcomes have gotten worse, whether it's homelessness, crime, blight, lack of affordable housing. I think we need more fundamental change in the way that we work in government. I have a plan for accountability that really starts through the budget process with setting fewer goals, focusing, measuring performance, and creating a clearer feedback loop between the outcomes we get and our pay, but really measuring what matters and being clear with the public about how we define success and holding ourselves accountable for embracing policies that actually move the needle. And so that's why I'm running. I know we can do better, but doing better is going to require all of us getting organized and setting higher expectations for local government. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to City Hall. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those introductions. And now we're going to begin with our questions. We'll be alternating who'll get the opportunity to start first. With this first question, we'll begin with you, Ms. Chavez. Why are you running for mayor? What makes you qualified to be mayor of the 10th largest city in the country?
Yes, thank you for that question. Let me just make a couple of observations about this community. One is that we absolutely are we're at a crossroads right now. Like, we can go one of two directions. We can kind of stay the path that I think San Jose has been on, or we can change. Why do I think we need to change? We need to change because when I served on the San Jose City Council, it was the safest big city in the country. When I served on the San Jose City Council, we were building affordable housing and we were permitting that housing in a way that allowed for us to build along the affordability continuum. When I served on the city council, we not only had a plan for cleaning the city, we were doing that. We were making San Jose a clean, safe city. And when I served on the city council, we didn't have the level of homelessness that we have today, in part because we were building housing that people needed, and we stopped doing that. And so the reason I'm running is to be able to address all of those issues. Why do I think we can do that? Because when I was on the city council, we were able to build permit 10,000 affordable units. We were able to make sure that we had 200 more police officers then than we did today, and they were responding to calls for service at an appropriate time. Now that time has doubled. When I say that we can make change, I'm saying it because we've done it, or I've done it. And that's why I'm running for mayor of San Jose, because I believe we can make all of these changes to improve our city again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm qualified to run because I know what it takes to deliver results and have done that as a public school teacher who had to get my students on grade level no matter what it took. I built companies where I had to show up to a board of directors every 90 days and show measurable results. And frankly, at this moment in our history as a city, I think the last thing we need to do is continue to elect the same people over and over again. If you look at what's failing, it is policies that we are stubbornly clinging to. Our primary response to homelessness right now, if you just look at how we're spending the dollars, is building brand new apartments at a cost of almost $1 million a door, and then spending $64,000 a year just managing the symptoms of street homelessness. If you look at our thinly staffed police force, which is more thinly staffed today than it was because we ran up as a city over $4 billion in unfunded liabilities, that thinly staffed department is arresting the same people over and over again who are being released from the jail the same day they're booked. We've seen a complete failure to address addiction and mental illness in our community. So if you want to get to the root causes of what's going wrong, I think we need to admit that many of our current policies and programs are not working, and we need much more substantial change. And more than anything, I think that's what we need from our next mayor, is somebody who's willing to admit that what we're doing isn't working and is willing to pursue very different solutions, including pushing our state government to do things differently as well, rather than essentially recycling the same approaches.
Thank you. And with this next question, we'll begin with you, Mr. Mahan. San Jose once claimed the title as the safest big city in America. What is your plan to reduce crime and make San Jose safe again?
Great. So as I just mentioned, and I touched on this, unfortunately, the city, some of its elected leaders agreed to unfunded and even retroactive obligations that ran up over $4 billion in debt. Today, 15 cents of every dollar you send to City Hall comes off the top to pay off the unfunded liabilities. So we could double the size of our police department today had we not made those decisions. So we have to be fiscally responsible. In the budget, we have to prioritize. I will, without running up debts, hire as many police officers each year as we can. And that means also constraining the growth of spending in other departments. But it also is going to require us as a community to organize and demand that our county get serious about expanding inpatient treatment facilities for addiction and mental illness and end the revolving door that we're seeing at the county jail right now. Your thinly staffed department over the last 24 months arrested or cited over 800 people 5 or more times each, over 100 people 10 or more times each, one guy over 30 times. That is the definition of insanity. And so we can do more of the same and expect a different result, or we can acknowledge how broken this is and demand better solutions. And that's really, it's not enough to just hire more police officers or have more programming at the libraries. We need a system that holds people accountable when they commit crime and then invests in rehabilitation and gives them the ability to get back on a better path.
So how do we get more police officers? First of all, let me just say that one of the challenges that we have is that we have so few officers that our response times have doubled for priority 2 calls. What is a priority 2 call? That is if you get assaulted, but the perpetrator is no longer there, that's a priority 2 call. When I served on the city council, we responded to those calls in less than 10 minutes. Now it takes 20 minutes. We absolutely need to hire more officers. The city of San Jose in the last budget, the council members added 20 new officers and made a commitment to add 15 new officers over the next 5 years. The city of San Jose spent $45 million a year in overtime pay over the last 5 years. We could take a portion of that and start adding officers back right now at a clip of at least 45 a year. We could pay to make sure our libraries and community centers are open. And we can do all of that and make San Jose cleaner and do all of that without raising taxes. All 3 of those actions will make San Jose a much better and safer city and will allow police to be able to respond to the calls we most need them to respond to. And the reason I'm pointing to all 3 things is that just having a cleaner city can drop violent crime by 30%. We've got to take care of the basics.
This next question is going to allow you to continue to elaborate on this topic. And again, specifically now, just noting what strategies you would plan to implement to increase the number of City of San Jose police officers. And we'll start with you, Ms. Chavez.
Thank you. You know, Mr. Mahan referred to contracts that we negotiated in the 2000s when I was there. We were competing then, as we are now, for the best and the brightest officers. At that time, every single vote we took was unanimous. So it wasn't as if we had, 1 or 2 people just kind of freewheeling it. We took decisions that we thought were very responsible. And I will just say that one of the people who voted with me on every one of these issues was Mayor Reed. So what does that mean in terms of recruitment? Well, one challenge we had is that at that time, what we did is the economy cratered, and the mayor then pointed to our officers and said, you're the problem, you're the reason that we have a problem, and we're going to renegotiate your contracts and we're going to put it on the ballot. When that happened, we lost 300 officers over a few years. Part of the way we have to recruit people back is we have to help officers feel like we're going to have their back, that we're going to have their interests, that we're going to support them in their jobs so that we're able to attract people to come back to us. And so when I ran for mayor this time, one of the things I wanted to make sure of is I had the support of the police officers union, because I need them to help us with recruitment too, because they've got to be in there saying, this is a great city. I want to work in this city. You want to work in this city. And oh, by the way, I want to make my career in this city. So we're not doing what we were doing, was training the best and the brightest to serve all over the country.
So I think being a little too close with the leadership of the police union is part of how we got into this mess. And the truth is we have the lowest vacancy rate of any department in the Bay Area. We're the third highest paid department in the Bay Area, average salary of $189,000 a year. I am very supportive of our police department. But if you make reckless spending decisions or only focusing on increasing the base pay of your existing employees, you can't add headcount. When Mayor Reed recognized that the city was on the path to bankruptcy, my opponent did not step forward and join in trying to be part of the solution. And so it's that status quo, stay the course thinking that has gotten us into this mess, where we are $4 billion in the hole. It's 15% of our budget every year, and we have to be more fiscally responsible going forward. So I am all for paying our officers fairly and supporting them. One of the best ways to support them is to not ask them to play Groundhog Day every day of arresting the same people over and over again. It's to invest in technology like automatic license plate readers to address street racing and smash and grab robberies and give them more leverage. And yes, it's to get headcount up, but we're not going to do that if we simply max out the salary that they're asking for every cycle and actually kick the can down the road on our fiscal issues. So we've got to have balance and be sustainable. The single best thing we can do, frankly, to get up staffing is to grow the tax base, to be a business-friendly city that brings jobs to places like downtown and North San Jose, to have the tax base to sustainably increase staffing in our police and other departments.
Thank you. And for this next question, we'll begin with you, Mr. Mahan. What are your thoughts regarding the various city solutions to address the unhoused, such as emergency interim housing, tiny homes, city leasing private homes to house multiple individuals, rent tax credits to landlords, leasing motels, purchasing trailers, using industrial buildings, etc.? Which do you feel are most viable solutions?
It was a good list. So let me back up and give you a sense of I think that the current approach, which has really been led by the county with the passage of Measure A and the $1 billion bond, is not working. And I think we need to acknowledge that. We are 6 years in, built about 700 units at a cost of over $850,000 a door. And I have been very vocal in pushing for more cost-effective solutions. If you look at cities in our country that have significantly reduced the rate of street homelessness, by the way, we have the highest unsheltered rate in the country because we're taking the slowest, most expensive path to providing housing. We need to scale up much more basic and cost-effective shelter. We need to recognize that experts say that for every 100,000 people, we need at least 50 beds for inpatient care for addiction and mental health care. We have just 13 in our county, a fraction of the beds that are required. So I think it's about scaling up the services people need, particularly inpatient treatment, building basic, cost-effective, but still dignified individual shelter, doing that at scale, and then leveraging every tool we have, from our anti-camping laws to expanding conservatorship, to get people indoors. I think at a minimum, we have a responsibility for providing basic indoor places for people to be. And I think people have a responsibility for living indoors at a minimum. And that's what we have to move toward in a much more cost-effective and pragmatic way.
Thank you. So I'm going to respond to a point that was made earlier and then respond to your laundry list with the minute and a half. And so let me start by saying that at the time that the mayor declared really war on our public safety unions, myself and others, tried to negotiate a settlement. Now, at the same time, I just want to remind you that when the city said, we're going to put a ballot measure on and we're going to force you to take it, and again, we lost all those officers, at the same time, we were working with all of the other public sector areas, and we did not have a single blow up like this. Everybody else gave back pay, they gave back benefits, and we were able to keep all of our other departments intact. This was an exception. So I was successful at the county and not at the city, in part because Mayor Reed was mayor of the city at the time. Now, to go to your question, we need to use every tool in our toolbox, and it is inaccurate to say that we only have one solution. We don't. But let me just remind you, cities are responsible for housing. not counties. We got into this business because the city wasn't permitting fast enough. It wasn't making it easy enough for people to get the housing built. They changed the general plan and made it more complicated. They put up more rules and made it more difficult. And so the question for the county was, do we provide support, not just to the city of San Jose, but all of our cities, because we had the largest unhoused population in the country? Or do we say, city, that's your responsibility and your fault? And frankly, I think the thing that has to change in government is stop pointing at each other, because frankly, you don't care what level of government's responsible. You expect us all to be grown-ups and work together. Because of that, we've housed 20,000 people in Santa Clara County. We have 10,000 more to go, but 20,000 people. And most of them we housed in housing that was already built and available. And we've built, I don't know how many units now. We may be at 1,300 for Measure A, but that's housed thousands of people. We've housed thousands of people faster in the last 9 months than we did all of the time previously, because we're able to use housing stock that's available and housing stock that we're building.
Thank you. For this next question, what plans or ideas do you have for helping the chronic homeless, not only with shelter, but also with any issues of mental illness and or drug addictions? And this begins with you, Ms. Chavez.
Thank you. So in the housing the way we've been housing people today, for people who are seriously mentally ill, we have what's called permanent supportive services. And the point of that is to continue to provide services for that person where they live. And the importance of that is that we're able to keep people housed at about a 93% rate over 3 years, even when they're seriously mentally ill. So we're providing services for folks that are both drug and alcohol service counseling and also mental health services. In addition to that, for people who don't need that level of care, we're making sure there's job training available. And this is one area I actually think we need to expand, and also education. One of the developments we have is right across the street from San Jose City College. And actually 2 of them, one that's for foster youth and one that's for folks who are seriously mentally ill. And part of the synergy there is going to be our partnership with the college, which I think we're going to see some very good results out of. So one of the most important things we can do is make sure that we continue to provide services to people so they stay housed. And that way, frankly, it allows us to be able to turn our attention to people that we're trying to continue to house.
So I don't buy this kind of rosy interpretation that we've housed 20,000 people. Now we just have 10 more to go, because actually, if you look at the data, we're spending more than ever. And over the last 6 years or so, our homeless population has almost doubled. So you've got to look, I mean, coming from the business world, I look at the rate of change, the rate of growth. Which way are we going? And we have not bent the curve. We're actually going the wrong direction. So it's, yes, I know that we, historically we have housing stock through the housing authority and other entities that have helped us house people. That's great. But we have finite resources, and we need to be pursuing solutions that are scalable. I'm not saying we haven't helped anyone. What I'm saying is that our solutions have not been scalable. With prefabricated modular units, building quick build apartments, we can get the cost to build the housing piece to 1/5 to 1/10 of the cost, in that range. So significantly more cost effective. We can do it much faster. The city, just through COVID, built almost as many units in 2 years as the county did with permanent supportive at $1 million a door. On the question about services, I worked to expand a program called San Jose Bridge that actually creates entry-level jobs for homeless individuals to help clean up the city, give people the dignity of work, that consistency. Longer term, I know I'm out of time, but we need to bring back, in whether it's an Agnews-like facility, but whatever it is, significantly expand inpatient treatment facilities for people.
Thank you. For the next question, what do you view to be the most significant budget issue facing the city of San Jose? How do you propose to attack the issue to resolve it? Mr. Mahan.
Well, the biggest issue actually budget-wise is a tax base issue. So you go to Palo Alto, Cupertino, these cities feel like rich towns, freshly paved roads, twice as many police officers per capita, and so forth. A big part of the reason is these are cities that have 2 to 3 jobs for every employed resident. We have 0.8. We're the only major city in America whose daytime population shrinks because a majority of our workers go to other cities to work. And in those towns, they generate property and sales tax revenue. So the most strategic thing we can do as a city is be business friendly, speed up permitting, keep fees under control, really invest in making our employment areas like downtown safer and cleaner and connected to good transit. And as mayor, I will fight to attract employers to invest and bring jobs to San Jose, because without that tax base, we're going to really struggle to provide the level of services that you all expect and deserve and see in many of our neighboring towns. And we often are penny wise, pound foolish. We've had council members get run out of office because they supported reducing a fee. But the reality is the fee was so high that nobody was investing. And so, you know, a high percentage of zero is still zero, right? And so I want to bring jobs and employers into places like downtown to build the tax base so that we can provide services to our neighborhoods.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And, you know, just to respond, I hope my enthusiasm and my desire to serve doesn't make any of you feel like I'm putting a rosy picture together. It isn't a rosy picture. I am very focused on making our community better. My attitude is that we can always do more. And this is more of I would say my personality is to be optimistic. It isn't to try to, I don't know, to soften things. You know, these are challenging times. I wouldn't be running for mayor if I didn't think they were challenging times. Now to the question, you know, one of the biggest challenges we have is that the Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Department of the City of San Jose, which is literally our nerve center. It's how people get housing built when we used to build it, and how they get a tenant improvement, or how they get to start their business, or how they get to start their job. Right now, we have a third less staffing in that department than we need. And it's really the most important department. It's more important than almost any other department we have, because all the other things that we want to fund and invest in are channeled through that department. And so making sure that that is a department that's easy to use, easy to access. And the mayor plays a very significant role in attracting new businesses to the community. I think that Susan Hammer did one of the most brilliant things ever, and maybe you know this, but she played a leadership role in making sure both Adobe and Cisco were here. Now we have to make sure we do a good job of attracting those small businesses and keeping the ones that we have.
Thank you. Next question. If faced with the challenge of a severe recession, how will you face that? What programs will you approach to cut? Will you raise revenues? What will you do?
Yes, thank you for the question. So the first thing I'd like to do as mayor is make sure that we do a forensic audit of the city now, and looking at all the funds that we have, all the mechanisms that we can use to use them. What are all the purposes that we have flexibility to use them for? The second is I would like every single department to do zero-based budgeting. And the reason for that is that it will allow us to not just incrementally add, but really look at what are the things that we most need to accomplish, and being able to do that in a rigorous way. And then third, I think making sure that we're looking at all the possibilities for us to share services. And I just want to give you an example. All of our fire departments buy new equipment and frankly are really strained in terms of the number of firefighters we have. But what the county's doing at my request is we're looking at jointly buying equipment and then cross-training our departments, so that not every department has to buy these expensive bulldozers or whatever those equipment are, and making sure that we're doing cross-training. So part of it is that we need to recognize that the city of San Jose, like the county of Santa Clara and all of these other institutions, they're not islands, and that allows us to do more collaborative work. And in some areas, I think that could be not just cost saving, but also protective of the institutions that we most have to be focused on: fire, police, and the Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Department as well.
Thank you. So if a recession hits, and I think it's quite likely, I don't know how severe it'll be, but it's very likely that we will head into a recession on the next mayor's watch. I think there are a few approaches. One that's really important that I am a huge proponent of is building up our reserves as much as possible. And we are lucky to have some strategic reserve funds that can be used to kind of smooth out that spending so that we're not immediately making huge cuts. And I think it's critical that we continue to build those every year as we have that opportunity. That will be a key priority for me every year that we have any surplus in the budget. I think building reserves for down years is critical. Next is deferring planned expenses, especially those that would require higher operating costs. So even if it's a planned capital expense that's already been saved for, if actually deploying it means that now we will have a new and higher operating expense to manage or maintain it, then we should absolutely defer that. We talked a little bit about overtime earlier. I think pushing down on overtime will be the next strategy beyond that. If we have to make cuts philosophically, and I think we should do this with or without a recession, I would like to do a comprehensive audit of the dollars spent that go to administrative and back-end roles versus dollars that reach the neighborhoods. And what I have seen over time, and this is especially true actually in our education system, interestingly, is that as spending has gone up, the percentage of it that actually reaches the end user, if you will, the customer, the resident, is a smaller percentage. And so I think the place to start cutting is, we have so many analysts and people sitting behind desks, and I know I'm out of time, but it would be cutting administrative costs before cutting those dollars that are pavement and police and parks and actually hitting the neighborhoods.
Next question. Please share with us, what is your position on San Jose being a sanctuary city? Mr. Main?
Yeah, so on the one hand, I hope we agree with this. I do not think that we want local law enforcement being an extension of immigration authority. We have tens of thousands of people in our community who are undocumented. I grew up in a town that is about a third undocumented, people working in our agricultural fields. We have a lot of people here working, paying taxes, raising kids. And in that sense, I would not support any change in our current policy. However, a place where I spoke up and took a lot of heat, frankly, from a lot of people, is that in cases where someone being released from jail who is undocumented, who's been involved in serious crime, whether that's drug trafficking, human trafficking, murder, the idea, which has been our stance, that we won't cooperate with federal authorities, I think is wrong. I don't think that's common sense. And I think in those extreme and rare cases, for the safety of our community, we should be willing to cooperate with federal authorities, and we shouldn't change our position based on who's in the White House. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. And so in that sense, I guess I've been a little bit bolder in that position. I also I don't support non-citizen voting, which is a little different, but an issue that's come up recently. I think voting should be a right and responsibility of citizenship, and we should open up pathways for people to become citizens if they're ready to make that commitment to our country.
I support absolutely what the current San Jose Police Department is leading on, and that is making sure that people who, no matter where they're from, feel welcomed in the community. We want everybody to feel confident dialing 911. We want everybody to feel confident testifying in a court of law. We need that to make sure that our community is safe. And I'll just add one other thing as it relates to whether or not we cooperate with ICE. Anybody who brings a judicial warrant to whether it's the San Jose Police Department or the county sheriffs, absolutely we should honor that. And I'll also add that our sheriff has the authority to cooperate with any level of public safety department in the country that she deems necessary. Part of the reason for that is that we have to be able to quickly respond to issues of terrorism and other issues that happen quickly and that might not have a judicial warrant involved in them. And that is, I think, very important. I do want to just emphasize one other issue, and that is, well, just to follow up on one other issue, and that is the issue relative to non-citizen voting. I think it's really important that people in this country recognize that citizenship is important, and it's a core a core responsibility, a core opportunity is to have the right to vote. And so I don't support non-citizen voting. I think it's enormously important that that stay in the purview of citizenship.
Thank you. For the next question, in light of recent events regarding elected officials and their private emails and our public records law, what specific policies will you enact to improve transparency of city government and ensure that the city will not be sued in the future?
So, serving on the city council, I established a set of ordinances called the Sunshine Ordinances, and it really had to do with primarily not surprising neighbors with developments or other things, so that we did a bigger job of getting the word out, and that we didn't just do that 500 foot, and that we weren't just using tiny postcards, but we were really trying to engage the community in decision making. And it brings me to the other thing that I did, both at the city and the county, was supporting that we publish our calendars and that you can see who we're meeting with and what subjects we're meeting on. I think that is enormously important. And as it relates to our emails, we should, and I've had challenges in the past remembering which phone I'm using, but any email that we are using that we are discussing public business must be made public. And it's really critical that we do that, in part so all of you understand that frankly, that there's transparency and you feel comfortable and confident that we're doing the business that you've asked us to do. I think the other thing I'll just add that I think the city's still doing that I think is really important, and we're doing it at the county too, is that if you're a lobbyist, you sign up, you say what you're lobbying about and for, and who your clients are. And again, I think that's very, very important.
Thanks for the question. I do all of my city business on my city email address, which is subject to public records requests. And whenever someone emails me at my personal account asking about city business, I forward it to my city email so that it is there and I respond there. And of course, all of my meetings are on my public calendar. So I take that seriously. I think that transparency is critical for maintaining public trust. And my team and I are very careful to adhere to those rules.
Thank you. Next question. Should the city of San Jose review the process of renaming streets and removing statues? Mr. Mahan? Should you review the process of renaming streets and removing statues based on the current policy that's in place?
Honestly, my focus is really on homelessness, crime, paving the roads. I don't want to see us spending a whole lot of time renaming streets and removing statues. We did have the Fallon statue come forward, and we went through the Arts Commission, and they came to a conclusion, and the council discussed and decided what we decided, which was to remove it. But yeah, I don't know. That's not a big area of focus for me. Frankly, I think we don't necessarily want to spend time reviewing that process unless it really becomes an issue. And I wouldn't want to draw more attention to it and incentivize folks to spend more time looking for street names to change when we've got a homelessness crisis, an affordable housing crisis, crime is up, and our kids are not necessarily getting the educations they need to compete in this economy, and certainly can't afford to live here. So it's really not an area that I'm very focused on.
It's also not an area that I'm been spending a particular amount of time on. I will say that I think for different institutions, whether it's schools or streets, if something strikes someone as important, I think it's up to them to kind of engage other people. But for the most part, I'll just say this, that I do really recognize that the history of our country and the history of our cities can be very, they're complicated. Our pasts are our past, and sometimes I think the opportunity to better understand them and to educate people is just really important. And I'll just give you an example. Like, if you had a chance to go down to Japantown, one of the things that's so interesting about it, it's one of 3 Japantowns left in the country. And it's an important place to preserve. The history is important. We ought to honor that history. And I think it's really important to learn about it. What you'd learn is that used to be a Chinatown that got burned down. And, those are important parts of our history. I think it's okay to understand them and to spend time learning about them, because I think it will make us a better society in the future.
Thank you. Next question. How are you going to address the underserved communities in the city of San Jose that may have been neglected over the years? What communities would be a priority?
So, one thing that I would really like to do is when I served on the city council, I represented the downtown of San Jose. And at that time, we were very landlocked and we had, and still are, we had a lot of issues that we were trying to deal with. And one of the most important new programs that we brought was a Strong Neighborhoods Initiative. And initially that was focused on low income neighborhoods that really needed to learn how to advocate for themselves, how to get engaged in city government. But more importantly, it was really an opportunity to teach city government how to work with neighborhoods that had high needs. And what I learned from that is that we had great programs where the community would put together their own plan. What were their design guidelines? What were their highest priorities? That allowed us in downtown San Jose to double the amount of neighborhood park space in downtown San Jose, to turn one-way streets back, or one-way streets back into two-way streets to slow the traffic down. So what I would say is that I think one of the most important things to do is not only start that program, but I think that's a program that needs to be addressed citywide. Now, as it relates to higher need communities, I do think that these plans also help the city prioritize investments in those communities, whether that's going to be parks or trees or towing cars or whatever else that neighborhood needs. I think we have to be, as a big city, prepared to be customized in the way we respond to districts and the specific needs of those areas.
So as a public school teacher in Alum Rock, I can tell you that our neighborhoods do not equally benefit from city services and historically have not. And some neighborhoods are truly underserved. I've spent years fighting for educational equity and raising the bar for all of our public schools and ensuring that every young person has access to a high quality education. And when it comes to core city services, I think we have a responsibility for delivering fair outcomes to all of our neighborhoods. And there are basic city services from sidewalk and road quality to tree canopy cover to the quality of our parks to programming in our libraries and community centers that is measurable. And I think the right and fair way to manage this is to measure and clearly publicly post the quality of those services and those outcomes. We have a system now for scoring the quality of our parks. We know where our canopy cover is low. Your district actually is maybe the lowest, as much of East Side San Jose. And I think the city over time needs to map out through our budget some additional investments to bring neighborhoods up, because every family and especially every young person in our city deserves to grow up in a neighborhood that is safe and clean and has trees and has a clean park, right? And so I think basic core city services, we need to measure and map geographically and make sure we're lifting up every neighborhood. And that's something that I will certainly do as mayor.
Thank you. Next question. What issues do you feel are most important for the county and city to collaborate on? And how would you bring those two large bodies together?
Sure. To me, the three big ones, and the city can't solve them alone, are clearly homelessness, crime, and affordable housing. So on each of those, we have to come to the table, look at how we're currently performing, frankly, feel the pressure from all of you to deliver better outcomes, and come to an agreement about what we're going to do differently. To me, on homelessness, the goal should be ending people living outdoors. Our current community plan on homelessness doesn't put that out there as the North Star. I think that's a problem. So I would like to better organize our community to demand that that be the North Star that we measure our success against. On public safety, similarly, we need to look at this repeat offense and recidivism and be much more focused on working together to reduce the fact that our officers are arresting the same people over and over again. And on housing, we have got to, and it's taken far too long for us to get past the current litigation that's holding up 20,000 homes in North San Jose that could be built near transit, and work together to bring housing online where it makes sense. And so I think there's a lot of room for us to improve, but I don't think it should just be collaboration in the sense of getting along to go along. I think it's got to be driven by measurable goals and you all holding us accountable across the city and county for delivering better outcomes.
One of the most important opportunities we have to improve the health and quality of life of our community is getting the city of San Jose and the county of Santa Clara to work together. On what areas? Homelessness, public safety, and overall health. And let me just, you asked a really important question, which is how do you do it? So first, let me start by saying that 9 out of the 10 council members have endorsed me. Some of them are to the left of me, some of them are to the right of me. I assure you, they do not always agree with me. But the thing that we've been able to do is work together on very important initiatives. Let me give you a few examples. When COVID hit and we had children who didn't have access to Chromebooks or hotspots, the city and the county worked together to make sure that we got those services, particularly to the east side of San Jose. We saw problems with responses to domestic violence, which is a crime that's been increasing. We pulled together 2 committees, made changes to our overall protocols, including how the San Jose Police Department responds. We did the same on sexual assault. We test DNA kits faster here than any place in the country, in part because of a partnership with myself and the district attorney. But how that gets translated into public safety is how we work with our police departments. How do we do it? We do it by putting people together, and we are looking at measurable outcomes. We can be so much more effective and so much more efficient if we're willing to work together. I've done that now as a member of the Board of Supervisors, and I'm certain as mayor of San Jose that we can bring our resources together to be much more effective and efficient than we have been.
Thank you. Next question. What is a city project or cause you would like to champion or promote?
You know, one of the things that I think is I'm not sure this is just a city issue, but I will talk about this as it relates to homelessness. Making sure that we're able to get people housed as quickly as possible would be my #1 goal. And as part of that, I think being able to expand services in a number of areas that are going to allow us to do that. And one of them specifically is making sure that the services that we're providing are really focused on keeping people housed and frankly, catching people before they become unhoused. As an example, we have 600 families that become homeless in our community every year. And my goal is to end that family homelessness by 2025. What's important about that is that if we work more closely, for example, the city has a program called the City Schools Collaborative, working much more closely with the schools. I think it gives us an opportunity to see families that are in trouble. And by the way, it's much less expensive, as I told you earlier, to help people before they become homeless than when they become homeless. So that would be a top priority, is family homelessness. We have a lot of senior citizens that are living on our street, and we have a higher population of women that are homeless here than almost any other place in the state. We have to be able to address that, particularly for seniors and for women, and restructuring the way we prioritize who gets housing, again, would be a top priority.
Thank you.
So just on the point about endorsements, I would just say I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Mercury News and 4 of the 5 living mayors who know what it takes to do the job. The council, over a third of the council will not be on the council in January. So, you know, I'm running to earn your vote, not that of other elected officials in our county. And, you know, if we can be so much more effective and efficient, I'd have to ask the supervisor why 20 years in, we're not already doing that. I think there is a lot of room for improvement, but I think it's going to require us to work differently. If I were to pick one unique program that I would push, it's accountable budgeting. It's setting measurable goals at the outset of the budget process, publishing them publicly on the city website. These are our top 3 to 5 goals, baselining where we are today, benchmarking against other cities, pointing for all of our big expenditures to which programs, which policies are meant to drive improvement, setting an improvement target, holding our city manager accountable for coming to us at least every quarter with an update as the CEO of the city. The one person who can hire and fire department heads is the city manager, showing us progress, telling us what we're learning, and being more dynamic, not waiting every 12 months to adjust course. We need to tighten our learning cycles and be adjusting on a monthly and a quarterly basis. And I'm pretty confident that if we had a more accountable approach, we'd be changing our policies faster. And if we're going to address homelessness and housing costs and crime, we need to change faster and learn faster. And that's really what's missing today in local government.
Thank you. Next question. What do you propose to do to address the unfunded pension liability faced by the city of San Jose? For example, in 2019, pension costs spiraled to $335 million, nearly 28% of the general fund budget. Mr. Mahan?
Well, as you know, this is an issue I'm passionate about. So look, here's the reality. Measure B was passed. Much of it was thrown out by the courts because when you make an agreement with workers and they do their part, you can't just renege on that later. And those workers, I mean, my dad was in the public sector and he survived on a pension. So I get that. Then we came back and Mayor Liccardo and the public sector union sat down and brought forward Measure F, which was a compromise. What Measure F has done is put us on a glide path to unwinding that $4 billion in debt over the next 18 years. It's a long time, but it's a lot of debt. It's over $4 billion. And so we're on that glide path. I don't think we want to relitigate this. We've been through 2 rounds of this. We've come to as good of an agreement as we can for those tier 1 employees, and we can't change that at this point. What we can do is 2 things. Number 1, not repeat the mistakes of the past. We have a disagreement right now over the current contract negotiation where the police union is asking for a raise that would significantly increase the unfunded liability again. And I think that doesn't make sense. We're going to push off tax cuts for or service cuts for our kids. But more importantly, the more hopeful piece of this that I'm focused on is economic growth, bringing jobs and employers to downtown San Jose, like Google, investing in BART and Caltrain, making our downtown an engine of economic growth and growing the tax base organically so we can provide better services without raising your taxes and make that unfunded liability a smaller portion of the budget as we slowly pay it off. But we are on that glide path today. We're not going to dramatically change the fact that we've got $4 billion on the credit card that we have to pay off.
One of the big opportunities that we have absolutely is economic development. And I talked earlier about making sure that we have that nerve center fully funded and fully functioning, which is the Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Department. The other thing that I'll just acknowledge is that state law has fundamentally changed what can and can't happen at local contract levels. And what that means is that for most of the people that are working for the city, that as we continue to hire people and we have more retirees, that the pressure on the budget will be changed pretty dramatically over the coming years. Now, let me just add one other thing, and that is that a big part of what we're funding is healthcare for retirees. And there are some changes that are happening in state and national law that should long-term alleviate us from having to be responsible for so much of the medical benefits that we currently pay for. And then the last thing I'll just add is that we have governing documents that were also voted on by the people, and that's Measure G. And that, I think that was Measure G. And that those standards actually protect, because they divide the city from the pension funds, meaning that the pension boards are responsible for making sure that those pensions are paid off in a reasonable time, which could give them flexibility like we're doing at the county, which is in some areas we're actually paying ahead during the year to buy down the overall cost. So my thinking is that we have a lot of opportunity to not just pay down that debt, but we're going to see changes to that debt over time.
Thank you. Next question. Do you see a meaningful role for the 28 San Jose boards and commissions? Currently, there are 75 vacant seats. How do we make these advisory bodies more meaningful?
Well, that's an excellent question. Whoever asked that, that's the first time we've been asked that. So thank you. I think that advisory boards are actually very critical. And one thing that again, Mayor Hammer did that I thought was really important is as she came in, she did a whole call for people in the community to get involved. And there are probably a lot of people in the community that don't know all the boards and commissions that they could weigh in on. And I think that's an opportunity for us to get new voices at the table. And I think it's very exciting as a way to engage folks. Some boards are I would say understand the role and we use them more and we use them better and we use people's time well. So one thing we might want to take a look at is for those boards and commissions that haven't been able to get quorum, even if they have people appointed to them, that maybe there's some of them that need to fade out. And there may be some that we need to think about differently. And then one other thing is I'm a big fan of community working groups and ad hoc committees. A community working group is a group of people that are working on a very specific issue. I started using these in when I very first got involved on the city council, we did them for BART. So we have ad hoc committees for VTA that are focused on very specific subjects. Once that task goes away, the task force goes away. And sometimes you just don't need them that long.
Thanks for the question. I think that people vote with their feet. And right now we're seeing less engagement on boards and commissions. I think in part because, and this is feedback I've heard from many residents, they don't feel that their input is having an impact. And so I think we need to restructure some of these boards and commissions to get people closer to city staff, be getting more regular updates on what staff is doing, and give input that's actually going to be listened to. I've served on one of these commissions, and sometimes it feels like there's kind of this culture of mutual avoidance, and you've got kind of the commission doing its thing and then staff and council all in a silo. And so I'd like to rethink the way that we operate these. They either need to be more relevant and actually empower residents to give meaningful input and get real updates on what's going on and help shape outcomes, or we shouldn't have as many of them. I don't want to waste people's time. One place I've been very focused is out in the neighborhoods. My office has put a priority on creating new neighborhood associations. I think having organizations like this one, well, I know you represent many different organizations, but at the neighborhood level, helping people meet one another, get trained on emergency response, do neighborhood watch, have community events. We know that neighborhoods where people are on a first name basis with one another are safer, are healthier, are places where people are happier. And so I want to focus in on strengthening our neighborhood associations and then rethinking and experimenting with the model around our boards and commissions, because I get a lot of feedback that people don't feel that their time is being well used.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to switch over to 2 minutes and allow each of you to provide your closing statements. Mr. Mahan, you'll begin.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate all the great questions. This was really well done. I'll just wrap up with this. My wife and I are raising our 2 little kids here in San Jose. We have a huge stake in the future of our city. I'm proud of San Jose as a city that has given opportunity to people from all over the world, myself included. I knew I wanted to come back here after college, and I'm happy to be here, but I am frustrated with where we are as a city right now. And I firmly believe that we can do better, but doing better is going to require us to change the way that we're working in local government. We need to actually change the operating model. I don't think it's about just any one issue or policy. It's about a system that doesn't have strong enough feedback loops, where the answer tends to be, it's too hard to change the system we've got, so we just come to you to ask for another tax or another bond when we want to do a new thing. And I want to push us back down to those core services to be asking the tough questions and be accountable for delivering better outcomes with the resources we have today, even if that's uncomfortable for those of us in government, even if it means changing people's jobs more quickly or reducing where we're spending in one department or moving people around. We need to be more flexible and iterative. And while government will never just run like a business, there is a lot to learn from that performance management mindset that was basically invented in our own backyard here. And I think that the capital of Silicon Valley, if we're going to call ourselves that, should also have the most innovative public sector. And we're not there today. I think we've been frankly stagnating. I think we've been doing more of the same, and you see the results on the streets every single day. So I am running for positive change that is about greater focus, measuring performance, being accountable, and evolving and learning faster so we can deliver the results that you all deserve. So thank you again. And please go to mahanforsanjose.com to learn more. I would love to bring you a lawn sign. Thank you.
Now I know who's in charge. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very, very much for being here. And thank you so much for caring enough about your city to be thinking about its future and taking your vote so seriously. Thank you. I'm running for mayor of San Jose because I know that we can make San Jose safer, that we can make it cleaner, that we can get more people housed, and we can build the affordable housing and the housing that we need to make sure our community stays healthy and vibrant. How do I know that? I know that because I've been in government and I've been in public service, and I have always represented the hardest to serve communities. I represent the downtown, the east side, and the southeast side of San Jose. I have to be really good at my job because the communities I represent have so much need. What does that mean? That means as a member of the Board of Supervisors, I played a leadership role in saving O'Connor and St. Louis hospitals. 451 hospital beds and 2 emergency rooms. That I helped in collaboration with the district attorney and all of our police departments to create a child advocacy center so that when a child is a victim of abuse, they're interviewed once, they're given services right away, and that includes the schools. That we changed when I got into the Board of Supervisors, our child abuse hotline was only getting calls answered at a 68% rate. We're at a 98% rate now. I focus on results that matter to your health and well-being. I want to be mayor of San Jose because I do want to be accountable. I don't want to say it's someone else's job. I'm not going to point somewhere else and say they didn't do what they were supposed to do. When you're asking to be mayor of San Jose, everything is your job, and I'm ready for that job. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you can all applaud. So thank you very much on behalf of the Berryessa Citizens Advisory Council and all of our partner neighborhood associations. We'd like to thank you for accepting our invitation tonight and being here with us in person. We have set aside, we have about 15 minutes that we still have the room. We do have coffee and treats in the back, and so we welcome you to stay to meet all of our guests here informally. So thank you. President Locke. Thank you so much. Thank you. No, so we have a committee that did that, so then they just answered the questions as I came up to moderate. So I was trying, yeah. So I was trying to do some rephrasing, but you know. Good, yeah.